right?
In Ireland, no. Internationally, yes. Yeah, like there's a lot of competition.
Hello and welcome back to the Carzone podcast, a show where we chat all things automotive because you love cars and we love cars too. We're joined here today by another true car lover and one of Ireland's most renowned automotive photographers, Paddy McGrath. Welcome and thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, Paddy, you've got the type of job that most little boys and girls and lots of bigger boys and girls would only dream to have, which is taking pictures of the newest and most exciting new cars on the market and some of the fastest ones as well. So, your job takes you all around the world. So what actually got you into photographing cars, and like what drew you into car photography in specific?
Yeah, I think I can just blame my father for everything. He was a passionate hobbyist photographer, photographing rallying in the 80s and 90s, and he kind of used to bring me along. So he used to go and stand somewhere dangerous, he used to hand me off into the arms of a stranger waiting for the cars to come past on the stage. And then as I got older, he gave me his camera to see if I liked it. And I think I was maybe 12 or 13, and I just started from there and just remember taking photographs of the Wexford Rally. And yeah, waiting for the prints to come back from the lab and just being absolutely mesmerised by like, oh my God, I created these. And then just kept going from there, yeah.
And what about your love of cars specifically? Were you always into cars, or what
Again,
sparked that?
it's from him, and it was just being exposed to motorsport from a young age. Like lots of my uncles used to take part in kind of grassroots motorsport and rallying and rallycross and watching them compete. My father obviously had the interest in cars as well, so yeah, it was just like watching up Formula One growing up, watching rallying. Rallying in particular for me growing up was a big, big part of my life. Like watching old VHS tapes of like the Group B era, and then watching the likes of Colin McRae, Tommy Mackinnon, Carlos Sainz, all those guys. I was always captivated by it.
And did you give that side of it a go yourself?
Absolutely not.
No?
No. I think you just have to kind of know that by the time I could drive, I knew already. I was like, no, I'm not going to be fast enough for that. And I just always had more interest in like the visual side.
Yeah.
So like my father had a book by Reinhard Klein called Rally, and it was just a photographer who was documented rallying through the decades, and I used to just pour through, and I was just fascinated by the different parts of the world and like how you incorporated cars and stuff into them and like the different people. It was amazing. So I was just stuck with that.
So what was your first shoot? Was it like a motorsport event, or?
I think it was kind of back in the day when like forums online were the big thing. I think I done like a feature shoot of like a member's car. And it was like, when I look back at it now, it was awful.
Yeah.
But like at the time, it was such a learning experience to meet this person, to see their car, to see the passion they'd put into it. And I didn't really realise it at the time, but that was how I kind of really got started, was at the car culture side of things. And yeah, like when you look back, I was like doing work for like Modified Motors and Flush Bus magazines and stuff. And we used to all like rush out at lunchtime in school to buy Max Power and all the really, really naff things, but they were just so impressive to us when we were younger. There was people in Japan doing these amazing things with cars. There was guys in the US doing amazing things with cars.
Yeah.
Again, it was the modified cars that got me started and things. But you look back now and they're dreadful. Like they probably were dreadful at the time as well to most people. But to us, there was just the creativity in them. Like we'd never seen anything like it.
That's an interesting point, actually, that when you got your inspiration, when you did learn about all those things, it was from like magazines, like the likes of Max Power and stuff like that. Yeah. Like and most of the stuff, the research and the way people find out about it is online now, but it's funny to see.
Oh, it was all like, every week I would go and spend like my school lunch money on the new issue of like Max Power, Revs, Fast Car, all the big UK magazines. And then as I got a little bit older, those magazines kind of started fading away with the likes of Car and Evo and Top Gear. And you start reading those and then you see, okay, there's levels to this. You could see that the modified stuff was like, they were kind of playing around and having fun, but then when you see what Car and Evo were doing with like new supercar launches, you're like, okay, yeah, this is a different ball game. And then the obsession just kept going, just chasing to see what the next thing was.
So how did that develop then? Like, how did you find it? Like, I take it was a long enough process. Did you ever see yourself making a career out of it back then?
No. It was always a hobby. Like, even when I was doing my leaving cert, I would rush through homework and then spend the rest of the evening like drawing or like figuring out like magazine layouts and stuff. I'd bit of an interest in graphic design. And when I went to college, it was actually for graphic design. And there was a module in photography that was kind of like a side thing. But I always kept on the weekends photographing cars, always. And then when I finished college, it was the middle of the recession, the big one. Came out and I was like working part-time in a video store. And I was like, I don't want to do this forever. And I was like, there's nobody here taking photographs of cars. And I said, why don't I just try it and see what happens? What's the worst? I can come back to my job working in a video store. And yeah, just started there and it never stopped. And that was about 15 years ago.
And was there a particular breakthrough shoot that did it for you?
I think it was kind of more of, I was covered a lot of drifting in Ireland in the early days when nobody really cared about drifting as a motorsport. And it's because I had friends who were involved in it, and it was like the link between motorsport and modified cars and car culture was kind of this nice little hodgepodge thing, and it was easy to access at the time. And it was through that we had these drives that got really, really good. So when they went to the US and started being really good over there as well, the outlets in the US were like, where are these guys coming from? Why are these people we've never heard of coming to the US and beating our guys? So they came and they found me as the kind of the source of being able to show them this is where we started from. And yeah, just kind of went from there, and it went from drifting then to all sorts of car culture over the world.
How do you find that it differentiates from shooting a car to like a person or scenery or something like that?
The cars don't talk back to you. Which you could laugh about, but yeah, a car won't tell you it doesn't look good in a photo. But yeah, it is. I think you can take your time when you're shooting a car, which is quite nice. Generally, if you're shooting portraits, you're on the clock because the person's going to be bored, or they might have limited amount of time that they can offer you. But with a car, I can go somewhere and I can afford to wait for hours and hours and hours until everything is just right. And that's a really nice, it's probably quite close to landscape photography in that regard.
And how would you describe the setup? Like, is it individual to each car?
Yeah, I think it's more individual to each photographer.
Okay.
So like a lot of my colleagues in the UK and the US, they might prefer to use flash and whatever tricks and stuff. I prefer to use natural light. I really, really get a joy out of using whatever light's available and like shaping it around the car, positioning the car just right, using polarizing filters to make sure like the reflections are clean, the colour of the car pops and stuff. But yeah, it's entirely a personal preference. I just prefer like the kind of a more natural look, and I think that comes back from shooting film and stuff, that I just like to be that little way, rather than like just I can use flash, I can do light painting and stuff. But if someone gave me just a camera and a lens and told me to go shoot a car, that's when I'm at my happiest.
And how did the commercial opportunity kind of pop up? I know you do a lot of shoots for like BMW and stuff.
Yeah. It was, again, it comes back to the car culture stuff. So when I was shooting drifting, and there was this Norwegian drifter, Freddie Asbo, and he came to Ireland to do a demo for Toyota. And then Toyota Ireland actually gave me one of my very first opportunities with a press car. And then Paddy coming through Skoda Ireland at the time, he gave me my second one. And then once I got those first two little bits into the portfolio, it was so much easier to approach manufacturers and kind of go, this is what I can do for you. Here's examples, rather than showing them pictures that might not have interested them. They didn't care about like lowered cars in America or whatever. They wanted to see Irish cars in Irish settings and go, oh, okay, yeah, we can try this. And then just kind of start. And then once one manufacturer does it, then others were like, okay, maybe we need to do this as well. And it just it's never stopped.
It actually, it does make a big difference having the Irish car in the Irish setting, I feel anyway, especially for, if I was a car buyer and stuff like that. It
for sure.
Appeals to you a bit more. So, talking about that, how would your process go with shooting a car in an Irish setting? So if you got a car from the manufacturer, what are your steps?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to how much time that you have. So sometimes the manufacturer like we need this done quickly. Like the car is going to press. Like, as you know, cars arrive into the country, they're prepped and they're sent out to press straight away because that's what they want to get the reviews in. So sometimes I get a day, sometimes I get a week, and that will usually decide a lot of what I'm going to do for that time. Then obviously the type of car makes a big difference. So if you're going to have a big off-roader, it doesn't make sense to shoot in the city centre. And if you have a small electric city car, you're not going to shoot it in the middle of Connemara. So you kind of work around with that a little bit.
Yeah.
And how much freedom do you have? I mean, is it a case that the manufacturer says, here, go make this look good? Or is it like, we want snow shots in July?
No, to be fair, for the most part, I get a lot of freedom.
Okay.
And I'll always try and give them a mix of like urban, rural, as best as I can. And at the end of the day, my job for them is to show the car off. So if people are looking at the photo going, that's a great background, then that's maybe gone the wrong way. It's like the viewer needs to look at the car. And basically treat the Wicklow Mountains as our studio photography. It's the best way I can kind of do it. So if the background is maybe a bit familiar sometimes, there's a reason to that. But again, at the end of the day, people need to look at the car. So that's what, just focus on that.
So that makes the commercial shoots a little bit different, I suppose.
Yeah, so for more commercial stuff, there's a lot more planning, a lot more location scouting. There's a lot more involved in every aspect of the shoot. But again, same thing. It's just the principle is the same, is to show Irish cars, Irish settings, and preferably on Irish registration plates as well, if possible. Sometimes you have to put dress plates on them, but yeah.
I presume you're dictated a lot by weather in Ireland, especially.
But one of the things about weather is you can always shoot any time of year, and like even in like absolutely lashing rain, you can still get really nice stuff. You just have to be prepared for it yourself. Waterproof waterproof the cameras, and just go for it. And it can look so dramatic.
And I guess it's the real picture of driving in Ireland. You're going to get a real sense of what it's like.
That's it. Like if we wanted sunshine, we'd take all the cars out to Spain and photograph them out there. But you get a kind of an overcast day and the clouds are moody in the background. I think a lot of Irish people can relate to that. It's like, oh yeah, that is actually Ireland. Those photos were taken and it's absolutely tiddling rain. So yeah, it's fine.
Has there ever been a nightmare shoot that made things really difficult?
There has been a couple where the rain has been so bad, and I mean so bad that it's like, okay, this is terrible. Like you can't even focus on the car. The camera keeps picking up the rain between the camera and the lens. But even then, like you just persevere. That's one of the things. Like you will often have days where things won't go your way, and all you can do is just all day just keep doing the basic stuff right and just be persistent all day long. And eventually the clouds should hopefully part and you get a nice sunset.
You wait for that half hour.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work, you just come back the next week and try it again.
So it sounds like you have to be quite patient. There's a bit of waiting around.
Yeah, you do. Because so much stuff is outside of your control. When you're shooting out in the mountains, in the city, like you can't move people around. You're in their way. They're not in your way. So you kind of find a place, be patient, be courteous to other people. And yeah, look, it works out most of the time anyway.
Obviously, with the popularity of the likes of Instagram now, there's a lot of amateur car photographers out there. Is there any kind of things that you could kind of let them know, any tips or hints for how they could take pictures of cars, or is there anything that kind of pet peeves you see with car photography that annoys you?
I actually, it's amazing to see the community of car photographers on social media and how easy it is to access now and to access information and knowledge about taking car photos. So yeah, all you can do is, and people message me last, like, what's the best way of improving? And it's like, just go take more photos. That's all it is. There's no shortcut. You can watch as many YouTube videos as you want. You can look at as many photographs as you want, but there's no substitute for going out into the real world with a camera and just taking photographs. And it's okay to make mistakes. You know, like if you take a photo and you come home and go, oh, that's a bit blurry or whatever, that's okay. You kind of go, you learn from that. You won't learn from a perfect photo, but you learn. And then every now and then you take a photo, you're like, I absolutely love this photo. Why do I love it so much? And you figure that out. And then the next time you're out shooting, can I replicate that time I done that other thing? And you can. You're like, okay. And then all of a sudden, you start building up those photos you like. So you have like an arsenal of approaches that you can take for different situations. And it's just, be persistent. Like, don't get put off if you go out and take your first set of photos and you're like, oh, they're a bit meh. Like, I take bad photos all the time. Yeah. All the time. And that just shows that you're trying. You're not just going to give up. Just don't give up. Just keep trying, yeah.
And in terms of the setup and stuff, would you generally work alone or do you have a crew of people? Does it depend on the shoot?
The majority of the time I'm on my own.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's just because the Irish car market is quite small. Yeah. So associated budgets are quite small. So it makes more sense for me to be kind of like to wear many hats and get stuff done. There are often times where we get to work with agencies, and those are the best days of my life because there's somebody else to clean the car and it's not me. And I'm a very happy man. I can just stand back, drink coffee and point at things. And I love those days. But more often than not, yeah, I'm on my own on the side of a mountain in the cold, trying to like very, very carefully clean a brand new car with very limited supplies.
That's what I was going to say. Like, how do you keep the cars clean?
You get away with a lot from a distance. You can get away with lightly soiled, I would say, from if you're far enough back.
Lived in.
Yeah, but if you're doing up close, like if you're doing detailing shots, like you just have to be like bottle of quick detailer in one hand and a fresh microfiber in the other, and you're just like making sure everything is immaculate up close.
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell us it's not as glam as it sounds?
It is nowhere near as glamorous as it ever sounds. The amount of people that have come with me like, oh yeah, I'd love to go on a shoot, which is like, yeah, come on, come along. And about 2 hours in, they're like, when are we going to start taking photos? I was like, oh, we're not even finished cleaning the car yet. It's like, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine a lot goes into the prep, but even the smaller things like making sure the wheel emblems are the right way up on the car and the steering wheel is placed a certain way.
Yeah, there's even taking tax disc holders out of the cars because they look terrible in the windscreen of a car. Making sure the car is positioned properly. That's a really big thing because certain cars look really good from certain angles, and even to the human eye they can look really nice, but when you put a camera on it and it looks bad, it looks awkward, so you have to figure out, it's up to you to figure out which angles suit that car best. And that's a criticism of every car, because just you're designing something that exists in 3 dimensions, you need to be conscious of the height, how much either side and stuff it looks as well.
Do you have to put a lot of research into the car before you shoot it, like for maybe specific features that you might want to photograph, or different areas of it that you might want to take pictures of?
Would it make me sound more professional if I said yes? Generally, no.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're all big boxes on wheels. And until you actually physically see the car in person and how light interacts with the lines on the car, yeah, you just kind of eyeball it, and you have to
You're
go
more
from
about
there.
the visuals.
Yeah, I'm more about the visuals. Now, the manufacturer might say to me, hey, look, there's a couple of features we want to highlight. That's no problem. I'll always take those on board. And then they're kind of fun because you can try and figure out how do you show something? How do you show a heated seat?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, or how do you show a heads-up display? Because they don't photograph.
Yeah.
You can see it with your eyes perfectly, but when you put a camera on a heads-up display, it kind of
Yeah.
never looks
No,
right.
that's a really tricky one, actually.
Yeah, so it's all those little things. So yeah, you figure them out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of the joy of the job, is those little puzzles where you need to kind of come up with a solution for them.
Have you a favourite type of car to shoot?
Old race cars.
Nice.
And that's just kind of it comes back to where I came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love shooting really old race cars with history, and just getting to see them and see, I don't know, they just feel so lived in, and they're old and they're oily and smelly, and they're really unreliable and they don't want to start, but when they do, they just sound angry. And I was like, yeah, that's fantastic. That's just, I love, and even little bits of damage or the patina on the cars. I just love that so much.
Yeah.
As these things that just tell little stories. Even when you get in and you can see the pedals are worn. That car has raced at Le Mans. The pedals are worn. That's brilliant. I love it. It's just the imperfections are just beautiful. I just love those things so much.
I thought you were going to say electric cars.
I don't mind. I work in Formula E, so I'm all about electric cars as well. And this is my thing, is that you can like more than one thing. It's okay. You don't have to choose a combustion car. You don't have to choose EV only. You can kind of go, today is a combustion day, and tomorrow, I have to do a lot of mileage in town, and I'd like an EV. I want it to be nice and quiet, and I want that instant shove. Perfect.
Is there a car that you haven't shot yet that you really would like to do in the future?
Yes. It's the car I grew up with as a poster on my wall, but I don't feel like I'm ready to photograph it yet, because when I do want to photograph it, I want to make sure that it's going to be the best shoot I've ever done in my entire life.
Oh.
And it's a Ferrari F40. It's the only, I have models of it at home. I've been in one, and I just kind of go, no. So when the time comes, I want to make sure that I have a plan, and it's this is going to be I want to photograph it like nobody else has ever done. So
I can't wait to see that.
I'm
it's
excited.
going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time because I've been thinking about it for all my career and I still haven't figured it out. But I'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully I'll get there. Yeah.
Deadly.
So what's your own car history like? What do you like to drive yourself?
I have a very boring car history.
Okay.
And I'm one of those people that I buy a car and I tend to keep it for a long time, so I don't chop and change a lot. Like I started with a Volkswagen Caddy and I loved the thing. Drove all over Ireland and the UK and when I was starting out my photo journey. Then went through I think I had a 3 Series diesel saloon. Then I had a Golf GTI, the 2010 Mark 6 Golf GTI, and that was my favourite car I've ever owned. It was bought as a completely standard car, and I created like my dream version of a Golf GTI with it. So it was designed to be really nice on the road, but it was also designed that I could go and do track days in Mondello, went to the Nürburgring, and I could bring it to a car show, and it's always looked the part, but it was super reliable, it was fast, it was just, yeah.
And still really practical. What caused you to part ways, it sounds like?
Yeah. I just kind of got sick. I kind of went to an estate car. I went to a Golf R estate after that. And the Golf R estate for me was a better car in every way. It was faster, it was more practical. But it never grabbed my heart the way the GTI did.
Yeah.
And then I sold that a while ago and I changed into another estate car, a 5 Series touring. And I'm all about big, comfortable armchair seats and heated seats and I had to do as little as possible when driving if I'm doing big mileage and stuff.
Absolutely, you've got to be practical too.
Oh, it's great. It's like, just comfort. I'm at that age now where I was like, I just sit down and I just want to be nice and warm and listen to a good podcast driving along.
Oh, I hear you.
So obviously with with social media coming into getting more popular, is there a way that would you shoot differently for social media as opposed to like a website photo?
Not particularly, but I do keep it in mind. I think this comes from my design background when I started, I was photographing with the idea that this photo is going to be likely to be used in print. So I'm trying to think, how can a designer lay out text and stuff around this? So you kind of do the same thing now with social media. If I'm doing this for social, am I giving the social team like an opportunity to do like kind of a nice 4x5 crop? If I move the car just a little bit that way, can I get something nicer in the background, get a cleaner backdrop and stuff? So yeah, it's a part of it, but I still photograph it as a photograph first and then let the other uses then kind of come out afterwards.
That's interesting. So you kind of do it after effect kind of thing to crop.
Yeah.
Because I always find do people prefer the portrait style when they're like looking at Instagram or TikTok?
Of course, cars are generally longer than they are tall.
Yeah.
So they suit a landscape photo better than a portrait one. But you have to respond to how people are interacting with content now. So you have to be able to give people that sort of content that works for them.
And what about videos? That's something that you said you mentioned you're turning your hand to a little bit more these days.
Yeah. I really find video fun.
Yeah.
Because it's so different. And there's some things that really work on video, but they don't work on photo.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things. Like photography, I'm self-taught. So I'm still going through the process of learning with every shoot that I do more and more video. And it's moving pictures. How hard can it be? And the answer is it's very difficult. There's so much more to consider. But then as you improve with that, it lends itself. You can become a better photographer. And as you become a better photographer, you become a better video person. So it's just all about figuring out visuals.
And how do you stay kind of creative and inspired after been working in the industry for so many years? Do you ever get kind of car fatigue?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so there are absolutely days where the last thing I want to see in the world is a car of any description. But when those days come, you think you just have to surround yourself with stuff that inspires you, whether that's cinema, reading books, like visuals in your head, and just kind of clear your mind and then get back to it and start with the basics. And once you can do the basics, then it's like, okay, I'm starting the motivation. It always comes back. But yeah, it's just the reality of if you just do the same thing every day, you will eventually kind of hit a bit of a lull. So you have to have techniques to work your way back into them.
That's totally natural. I mean, I'm sure people talk about how amazing your job must be all the time, but at the end of the day, if you worked tasting chocolate in a chocolate factory, you're going to get
for
sick of it
sure.
eventually.
Like I've like colleagues that work racing race cars around the world for a living, and to them it's just a job.
Yeah.
You know, like they're flying first class. We don't. The media are generally down the very back of the aircraft, beside
Steerage.
down beside the toilets. But yeah, they fly around. They have people to carry all their stuff for them. But it's just another day. They get into their race car and they drive really quick. They give their feedback and they get onto an airplane. They fly somewhere else and do the same thing the next weekend. It's just a job.
Yeah.
It's quite funny. It's like you take a lot. It seems people might think that we're being like that we're not. We should appreciate them, or we do appreciate it. But it is. It's just a mental thing. You just do the same thing all the time. Like, okay, I need a break from this.
And how do you find the travel? Is there much involved?
Yeah, with Formula E, there's a good bit of travel involved. The calendar for next season is a little bit more friendly. So there's like one big trip every month.
Okay.
Whereas last year we were kind of doing one every other weekend. So there's like a lot of flying, and it's just trying to catch up with yourself and your brain, and you're trying to manage a business at home and make sure that your clients in Ireland are happy as well, and make sure they're taken care of. But so next year it looks like it should be a lot more manageable. Like gone for a week, home for 3 or 4 weeks. That's okay. I can live with that.
A better balance.
Yeah, a little bit of balance. Yeah, it's nice.
Would you have any advice for any aspiring photographers who'd like to do what you do?
Yeah, just it's as simple as going out and just taking photos of cars. And I think there may be a mistake that a lot of people make is that when they're starting out, they would go, I want to take photos of cars, so I'm going to contact the PR person for Ferrari and they'll see if they give me a car. That won't ever work. You start at the bottom, and that's how I did. You start photographing friends and family cars. Your weird uncle that might have an old car in a shed, ask him if he'll take that out, go take some photographs of that. And then you just perfect your trade and just keep going, build up that really nice body of work, find a style of your own. And then I think if you just keep doing that, if you're persistent, the work will eventually start coming towards you. You shouldn't have to go looking for it.
What about equipment? Is there anything that you'd kind of advise someone if they're starting out to get?
I would say if you don't own a camera and you have a camera on your phone, the phone camera is good enough. Okay. You know, it's a tool. It's like saying you can't be a carpenter because you don't have the best hammer. I don't know what tools carpenters use. But yeah, it's just use whatever you have. What will separate your photography from another photographer's is how you work in post. So your colour grade is a big thing. So there's lots of free apps you can use. You can even use the built-in app on the iPhone. That works to colour grade a photograph. Find your style that way. And then when you kind of get used to it, you're like, okay, I want to try now, and then go buy a camera and just keep going. It's just that way, just keep going little by little, develop. And like, don't be afraid to like try things. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And like, if you're going to try and imitate other photographers, that's okay to an extent, but acknowledge where your inspiration comes from. Like, there's loads of photographers that have inspired me over the years, and I'm always very quick to say the likes of like Reinhard Klein, the rallying photographer, like big inspiration. Then the likes of modern times, like people I've worked with, the Richard Pardons, Mark Riccioni, Sean Klingelhofer, Lynn Berg, Larry Chen. All these guys have inspired me in some way, and I also just put a little bit of their sauce into what I do, and it's kind of, okay, that's nice now, and it becomes your own then as well.
Yeah.
Any big ambitions for the future? Are you happy enough with how things are going now?
Yeah, I like how things are. I'm very much a creature of habit. I don't really feel like I want to prove anything to anyone. I just want to kind of enjoy what I do. I like coming home to my wife and daughter and spending time with them. I like going and hanging out with my friends with their cars and just keep doing the things that make me happy. You know, like, I think if you start chasing like maybe not unrealistic goals, but if you start chasing things that are like if you're financially motivated, I don't think you'll ever be happy. So I just kind of find like there's a real happiness in just being like content with what you have and appreciating what you have and what you get to do.
It's a really good outlook.
Yeah.
Shall we do a little quick fire round before we finish up?
Absolutely.
God, here we go. Right.
So manual or automatic?
Manual, but automatic every day. Go on.
Oh, this is a tough one. Well, maybe it's not. Electric or combustion engine?
I go combustion, but electric every day.
I like this. This is making sense.
Yeah, it's like they're all political answers, but yeah.
In your opinion, the most photogenic car colour?
I'd say there's a few. I think it's a colour. So if it's red, green or blue as a starter, that's generally a really good start. Like black works really well on a car, but it's very hard to photograph. And same with white, it hides a lot. My car is white. No judgment. But it's like, yeah, I like shooting cars with colour, and the layerier the better.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're a press person, you're working for a manufacturer and you're trying to decide on the colour of your next press car, go for the really odd option. It'll be great, honestly, I swear.
I think a lot of them do that because there's been several launch colours where we've been like, oh, okay. And your favourite car of all time?
Yeah, I think I've said it already. It's a Ferrari F40. It's ridiculous. It's like a big go-kart race car thing, and it's the car that's felt the most alive. Like it felt like a living, breathing thing, being only as a passenger. So I can't even imagine what it's like to drive one. But yeah, it's...
Once again, everybody, watch out for that shoot because we're all very excited for it.
That must be the slowest quickfire round we've ever had.
It's political. It's like, it's just the way, isn't it? It's like there's so much to cars, and like you could wake up one morning and be like, "Oh, do you know what I want? I want a V10 screaming in the countryside at 7:00 in the morning." Very sorry to everybody that lives in the countryside. And then other days you wake up, you're like, "Do you know what? I want something calm, electric, quiet, refined." It's just whatever humour you're in that particular day.
Yeah.
They can all be really, really good. And they can also all be really bad as well. So I was trying to pick the good cars are good cars. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks a million for coming on, Paddy. If anyone would like to see Paddy's work, you can go to pmcgphotos.com. Is that right?
Yeah, catchy.
And then your on Instagram is?
At PMCG Photos.
And also you do a lot of posts on LinkedIn as well and the usual platforms. Just search Paddy McGrath Photos.
Yeah, make sure, if you just Google, and make sure to put the photos in, or else there's a Donegal GAA player who always comes up as the first result. So it's like currently competing with him to be the #1 Google listing, but yeah, I'll try that.
If you need help with SEO, just give us
Oh, that's a show. That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
So PMG Photos. So that's it for today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please give us a like and share and maybe even a nice review if you feel like it. Until next time.